Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my Haunted Drive-In. Today I'm thrilled to be talking about not only one of my favorite horror films, but one of my favorite films of all time, and that is Phantasm. Phantasm came out in 1979. It was directed by a new filmmaker, Don Coscarelli. This is kind of his auteur piece, and on a very low budget of $300,000, which even in 1979 was not a large budget for a real film. It has kind of that feeling, that film school feel, but that's a good thing because it really has the charm of a film that has a real loving hand behind it. I do remember seeing this at the drive-in, and I do feel lucky that I saw this at the drive-in because it was an enormous screen, and it was during one of my high school drive-in parties, and what would happen is that we'd stay all night, and after a while, the films would start to repeat. As soon as those red letters came up on the screen and that amazing score kicked in, this film just totally pulled me in. It really has all the things that I love, and I've continued to be a fan of this first film, and I've seen a lot of the sequels, not all. I didn't see the last one, Ravager, just because I read it was so bad. I don't know, I don't want to taint my love of Phantasm, but I will watch it eventually. But I just really love this film. It really hits all the things that I love, not just about film, but about art and life, and that's, you know, like surrealism and dream and an incredible soundtrack and the 70s weirdness. It also has a real heart to it, and I think that is one thing about this film that makes it different from other films, especially other horror films. You care about the characters because there's a really strong relationship with the brothers. The cinematography is great, especially considering it's such a low budget film, because a really smart director will use that to his advantage or her advantage. So you see a lot of night scenes with just them lit. So we don't see any of the background. And it gives a sense that they're the only people in this town. And I love that part of this film too. It does create that dream world. So basically it starts out with a dude, and he's definitely a 70s dude by his facial hair, a dude named Tommy making out with this girl in the cemetery, and she's referred to as the Lady in Lavender, kind of sexy blonde in a purple dress, and they're fooling around, and the sex scene is kind of funny. It has that kind of schlocky, like B-movie, 70s kind of porny B-movie feel to it, like off the bat. And there are several different instances of that through this movie that are kind of fun. Tommy's like, oh yeah, baby. And suddenly she pulls out a knife, turns into the tall man, stabs Tommy to death. Then we cut to Morningside Cemetery where Tommy's funeral is taking place. And we're introduced to Jody, who's this good-looking guy in his 20s, and their friend Reggie, who Reggie's a whole other incredible character who's gone on to embrace his role as the franchise wore on. But Reggie's like a good friend. He's working his skullet. Is that what you call his hairdo? Gotta love Reggie. So they meet, and then Mike, the 13-year-old brother, is spying on the funeral, and he sees through his binoculars a very weird thing happen after the funeral. The creepy funeral director, known as the Tall Man, picks up the casket and puts it in the hearse. Now, I remember when I saw this at the drive-in, that part really scared me. It's definitely, and Grumpy Andrew pointed this out too, it's an homage to the original Nosferatu, when Nosferatu does that with the coffins when he's preparing to leave Transylvania, I think it is, and go to London. He's picking up the coffins like they're nothing. So it's definitely creepy. So these weird things are happening, and Mike goes to see a fortune teller. And I love this scene when you just see the sign with just the hand on it. To me, that always kind of spoke to this dream sense of this film, where things are not really spelled out. Like, it doesn't say fortune teller. You just see the sign with the hand. I know that's just like a little detail, but I like that. I really love that. I want to open a shop and just have like a hand. I just think it's very cool. The props and some of the effects, a lot of the effects are kind of lame in that way because it's so low budget, but I think that's part of the charm. And I think fans of Phantasm would agree with me that it's part of the charm. Grumpy Andrew says it's like being held together by cellophane tape and cardboard. And you really get the sense that it is. It's more like an art film. And I really appreciate that aspect of it. So if you go into this film expecting like very sophisticated special effects, you're not going to get them. We get this relationship between the two brothers that's really strong. In fact, I think it's one of the strongest parts of this film is that there's real loss there. There's real pain. Mike is 13, which is a very vulnerable age for any young person. And I think that is also when, as a teenager, when you really start to confront the idea of death. So this film is really about confronting death. Jody and Mike's parents died, and Jody comes back from LA. There's a sense that he was like in a band. Like he's, all of this, the script is very vague, but somehow it works. So Mike breaks into the Morningside mortuary, and there's a couple jump scares. He is hiding inside a coffin when this guy who's like a caretaker, maybe he's a grave digger or something, he's kind of creepy looking guy, is wandering around. Suddenly, the silver sphere that is like one of, I guess Phantasm's like a unique, I don't know, weird weapon that then became very iconic. It's not, you don't see it that much in this movie, but it's very cool. It like sees it infrared, and there's this one cool shot where you see its point of view while it's going through this maze at the mortuary. And we get this iconic scene where the sphere is going after Mike. It hits the caretaker and drills into his head in this very graphic scene where the blood is shooting out. And we'll in all the sequels, we kind of see a revisiting of this idea with the sphere. It's very cool. So then the tall man faces off with Mike, and I like how they kind of inch toward each other, and then Mike takes off, and there's a really nice sound, a sound with movement here where you could tell that they're using like a Steadicam or just a camera on the shoulder. Again, there's like a film school feel to it. And there's a very good, on my DVD anyway, and I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, there's a really good behind the scenes, like 16 millimeter behind the scenes of how making of Phantasm, that's pure gold. And it gets into a lot of the stuff, how they did the effects. And it was all kind of hands-on stuff. So while the tall man is chasing Mike, Mike's able to escape, slams the door on the tall man's fingers. And because, of course, he brought his like commando knife with him, he cut the fingers off. And now we see that the tall man is not of this world because he's bleeding yellow blood. And is it like acid, like the alien? No, but it does come out like this really creepy yellow blood. So then we get into something that's probably one of the silliest parts of the film, but still, like I said, it's part of the charm. The finger turns into this like giant bug that flies all around the house. There's this great scene of just physical acting where it's like trapped inside Mike's denim jacket and they're flying around. It's really kind of funny. They shove it down the garbage disposal. Of course, it comes back, and Reggie shows up and delivers one of my favorite lines in the film.
What the hell is going on?
One part of the film I really love is this cross-cutting scene between Mike and Jody, where they're kind of in the same mind. After Mike jumps out of the back of Sally and Susie's Volkswagen out the back window, and he's laying with his face on the road, and we get this nice cross-cut back and forth between Mike and Jody, and the camera just skips in, and there's this idea that these two are really Mike comes in, and then there's that nice scene where they hug, and he takes a a swig of Jody's beer, and then Jody goes to Morningside to kind of fight the tall man, and other things happen. So I rambled a lot, but I just love Phantasm, and I think maybe the weirdness of it and the fact that it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I never really know what the hell is going on, is what brings me back to it time and time again.
I'm sitting here at midnight, and I'll be sitting here at noon. You see, my lady left me lonely, yes she did. My baby left me blue. Huh!